Hackers practice.
딕테이션 연습.
1.
Her name is Brenda Schneider. Schneider. Her name is Brenda Schneider. Schneider.
2.
Your new student ID number is 012PQG. Your new student ID number is 012PQG.
3.
This seminar will be held in Lecture Hall 127B. This seminar will be held in Lecture Hall 127B.
4.
You can sign up for campus clubs at the library information counter. You can sign up for campus clubs at the library information counter.
5.
We'll email you a curriculum outline after the consultation. We'll email you a curriculum outline after the consultation.
6.
Freud noted love and belonging as being the most difficult human needs to obtain. Freud noted love and belonging as being the most difficult human needs to obtain.
7.
A new technology company was sold to one of its larger competitors for approximately $176.9 billion. A new technology company was sold to one of its larger competitors for approximately $176.9 billion.
8.
All participants must reserve their spots in advance and pay online by credit card. All participants must reserve their spots in advance and pay online by credit card.
9.
In the study, participants were asked for their reactions to various images. In the study, participants were asked for their reactions to various images.
10.
The textbook highlights that managers should identify specialized worker skills. The textbook highlights that managers should identify specialized worker skills.
11.
The council holds meetings twice a week to discuss ideas for town improvements. The council holds meetings twice a week to discuss ideas for town improvements.
12.
Tickets for the university game will be available from the 10th of October. Tickets for the university game will be available from the 10th of October.
13.
Stricter regulations on hunting and fishing might also protect the grey wolf species. Stricter regulations on hunting and fishing might also protect the grey wolf species.
14.
Baroque columns were often designed to be curved or spiraled in overall appearance. Baroque columns were often designed to be curved or spiraled in overall appearance.
15.
Penicillin can reduce the spread of illness by disrupting the duplication of harmful bacteria. Penicillin can reduce the spread of illness by disrupting the duplication of harmful bacteria.
16.
This flowering plant has developed thorns all over its body as a means of defense from insects and other predators. This flowering plant has developed thorns all over its body as a means of defense from insects and other predators.
유형 연습. Section 1. You will hear a conversation between a customer and an agent at an art academy. First, you have some time to read through questions 1 to 4. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Hello, this is the Ridley Art Academy. Come in. Can I help you with anything?
Yes, I just moved to town and am interested in enrolling my child in an art program. So, I wanted to see what kinds of classes you offer.
Wonderful. We have several art courses for children. If you could give me a few pieces of information first, I'd appreciate it. Could I get your name?
Pablo Marquez. That's spelled Marquez.
And the age of your child?
Just turned 10 about 4 months ago.
Well, we have a few different courses for that age group. One is Introduction to Art, which includes painting, drawing, and lots of fun activities. We also offer Sculpture Workshop, where the children work with different sculpting materials, and History of Art, where the children learn a bit about famous artists and art movements.
I think the introductory class would be best.
Good. Now, we currently have 16 children enrolled in that course, but we have a teacher and 2 assistants with them at all times.
Great. And how much do you charge?
Actually, we charge per month. The cost would be £160, and you pay at the beginning of each month. But if you enroll for a period of a full year, the rate is only £120 per month.
Really? Well, we plan to enroll for a year anyway. Okay, I would like to go ahead if there is space.
Absolutely. The classes will start this coming Tuesday.
That's fine. So that's February 2nd, right?
That's correct. And payment is accepted by cash, credit card or cheque. Which do you prefer?
I'll pay with my credit card. Thanks.
Sure. Now, if I could just get you to fill in this enrollment form, I'll go ahead and take care of your payment. And then I'll get you a brochure about the academy and a copy of your child's art class schedule. Also, there is a list of our policies, which you can look through and...
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 1. You will hear a telephone conversation between a customer and a receptionist from an insurance company about medical coverage. First, you have some time to read through questions 5 to 9. Now listen carefully and answer questions 5 to 9.
Midlands Health Coverage Services, this is Melanie speaking. How can I help you?
Hi, I'm planning to study abroad in Spain for September and October this year, and I'll need medical insurance.
Certainly, I can help you. First, if you don't mind, I'll need to get some information from you. Could I first get your name and postal address, please?
Yes, it is Adam Harker, and I'm at 48 Bixteth Street in Liverpool. That's Bixteth.
Uh-huh. What is your postcode?
It is L34EW.
Oh, and I'll also need your home phone number.
Sure, that's 0151 555 0143.
Thanks. Got it. And could you tell me if you currently suffer from any medical conditions or diseases? Policy rates are a bit higher if you are already diagnosed with a medical problem.
No, nothing that I know of. I had a checkup last month and everything was okay.
Great. Well, we have a policy for those studying in continental Europe.
Oh.
It's a student policy for those aged 17 to 25. And it is for basic coverage and costs £88 per month. However, dental work and medication are not included. We also have comprehensive plans that cover everything, but they cost more.
I'm 27, so I am not eligible for the cheaper plan. How much are the other policies?
Regular plans are £112 per month, and the comprehensive ones are £158.
I have a limited budget, so I'd go for the less expensive option. I plan to travel around a few nearby countries in Europe as well. Would that affect the price? And I might choose to stay in Spain an extra month, so would the rate be the same if I stayed 3 months instead of 2?
Actually, no. There would be a 10% discount, and there would be no change to the policy if you travel to neighboring countries.
Well, that's good to know. Okay, so how do I make payment?
You can pay by credit card now, or send us a direct deposit from your bank.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 2. You will hear a radio broadcast about a renovation project. First, you have some time to read through questions 10 to 13. Now listen carefully and answer questions 10 to 13.
Welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Arts National, the weekly news show focused on the arts community. I'm your host, Adam Easton. Our top story this week is that Auckland will be celebrating the reopening of one of its oldest theatres, widely seen as a push to revive stage entertainment in the city. After a nearly 20-year wait, the famed Queen's Theatre will once again open to audiences. The entertainment structure was originally built in 1857. What was the purpose of the facility at that time? Well, it ran stage plays and, later, movies, as well as live performance. But the theatre was forced to close in 1972 when attendance started dropping. Audiences were staying home and watching television, and the theatre was unable to stay in business. However, there was renewed interest in the historical structure nearly 25 years later when the Auckland Theatre Association, an organisation consisting of Auckland's most renowned theatrical professionals, began petitioning the city to provide a permit for the theatre's renovations. It was granted in 1998, and a local construction crew began work to restore the theatre to its original condition. Progress stalled in 2000 due to a lack of funds, But in 2009, an anonymous donor provided the necessary money to complete the renovations. Efforts recommenced and the restoration project was finally finished just last month. According to Michelle McCall, director of the Auckland Theatre Association, their hope is that the reopened Queen's Theatre will provide a space for community, creativity and youth engagement. A special program will be held to celebrate the reopening this coming Saturday, including several short performances by theatrical troupes. And then our first scheduled show, a dramatic play entitled Clear Path Ahead, begins on Monday. Those from the general public who wish to attend the reopening performance may purchase tickets from the Auckland Theatre Association's website or visit the Queen's Theatre box office between the hours of 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. any weekday. Seating is limited, with a maximum capacity of 250 people, so a sold-out event is likely. Advance booking is highly recommended. Head down to the Queen's Theatre next week for one or all of these great events. And don't forget, you can find more about the other plays and performances that are scheduled to appear in the theatre program or online. On our next scheduled show, I will be reporting on a new exhibit at the Museum of Science, so tune in next week for...
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 3. You will hear a conversation between two students about a joint presentation of a case study. First, you have some time to read through questions 14 to 18. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 14 to 18.
So, Kate, let's go over the content for our presentation on perceptions of women in executive roles. What will we do first?
Okay, well, first, why don't you introduce the main focus of the case study, James?
Sure, that's fine. And maybe I can also explain why we chose to do our research in only one city. What should I say about that?
Well, it was so that we can compare our study with those done in other locations. We can see if the cultural differences in different places play a role in the outcome.
Yes, it seems that culture made a big difference. We can bring that up in the analysis part of the presentation. And once the introduction is done, I will provide a sample of our survey so that people understand how we approach the topic of women in executive roles. I can offer an explanation of our research methods also.
Sounds good. And next, let's see. If you want, I can present the data we got from the survey. I'll describe how female executives perceived their roles and how other co-workers perceived them. I thought there weren't too many discrepancies between those two viewpoints.
No, I think there were some differences. But one similarity I thought was very interesting was how employees and colleagues of the women we surveyed were so uninterested in the importance, or should I say necessity, of the women's roles. I got the feeling from the data that female executives were seen to have been given
just token positions, right? Rather than well-deserved roles. I agree. That was especially true among males surveyed, and that should be an important portion of the presentation. You could present the analysis of our findings and include that point. There's quite solid evidence that women are still not taken seriously in the workplace. We like to think that we treat men and women the same, but there certainly is evidence that there are very few female executives in comparison to males.
Right. The relevance of this study is that it gives tangible examples of how we haven't achieved fairness in terms of job opportunities or treatment in the workplace.
And it also points to the underlying social stigma around women and professionalism that society needs to overcome. We have to do a discussion part after the presentation as well, right? Perhaps we can discuss ideas about how businesses can make efforts to create workplaces that promote equality for women.
No, we don't have to. The discussion portion is optional. But I think you're right. I think that would be an excellent topic for those attending the presentation to discuss. Could you be the facilitator for that?
I can do that. Well, it seems that we have everything we need.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 4. You will hear a seminar by a researcher on human longevity research. First, you have some time to read through questions 19 to 22. Now listen carefully and answer questions 19 to 22.
Many people are not aware of the reasons for longevity, but recent studies have revealed that there are many things to consider. For this morning's seminar, I'm going to focus on human longevity. Human longevity is a topic I've been involved with as a scientist for over 20 years. I'd like to share some of the key points of recent research with you and discuss some of the contributing factors to longevity. There's been a battle among scientists over whether genes or environment and behavior determine a person's lifespan. Do people live longer because of heredity or genes? Or is longevity nurtured through healthy habits? We are finding that it's a combination of factors. Some that are learned and others are from nature. First, I am going to discuss nature, or more specifically, genetic factors for longer lifespans. For a long while, researchers have been searching for what they call the longevity gene. A prevailing theory has been that longevity is predetermined by a person's genetics. So, have they discovered this gene yet? Well, no, but biologists have recently identified a protein, SIRT3, as the possible key to slowing down the aging process. What they found was that this protein helped stem cells cope with stress. But just months after the results of this study were released, another group of researchers published an article revealing several flaws in the study. Their strongest critique was that a molecular level response doesn't necessarily translate into longer lives for people. Now, I'd like to talk about behavioral factors, or the nurture aspect of longevity. Most researchers now agree that the causes of longevity are complex, and that even if there is a gene for longevity, other factors, both environmental and behavioral, can weigh in just as much. Take, for example, an 80-year study called the Longevity Project that was conducted by a team of social psychologists in the US. 1,500 people took part in the experiment from the time they were kids in 1921. And it tracked every possible environmental and behavioral factor to determine the character traits, habits, and mindsets that make some people live longer. You might think that things like healthy habits would be more predictive of a long life. However, the study actually revealed that personality characteristics and social relationships from childhood are predictive of a person's lifespan. In other words, there were correlations between certain behavioral or environmental factors and longevity. One example from the study revealed that it is the most prudent and persistent individuals, not the most cheerful and humorous ones, who survive the longest. It also showed that those who were hard workers and were most committed to their careers lived longer, We often associate a relaxed, stress-free attitude with a longer, healthier life, but that's not always the case. And one final bit of information comes from another study conducted by a team at Brigham Young University. The results show that people who maintain strong friendships and relationships tend to live longer.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 4. You will hear a lecture by a psychology professor about the effects of meditation on the brain. First, you have some time to read through questions 23 to 28. Now listen carefully and answer questions 23 to 28.
Today we're going to talk about the catalyst behind the recent trend in people taking up the practice of meditation. Now, this particular trend is tied directly to an increasing amount of scientific research, which has shown the benefits of meditation. First, I'm going to explain how science measures meditation's effects on the brain, and then we'll look at some scientific studies. To start, it's important to remember that scientific studies of meditation's effects on the central nervous system are broken down into two categories. The first is the study of state changes, which are instant changes in brain activity that occur while meditating. The second involves looking for trait changes, which are more permanent changes resulting from long-term practice of meditation. To perform studies, scientists use several technologies. The most common one is electroencephalography, or EEG, which measures the electrical activity of the outer layer of our brains. EEG measures the duration of brain activity very effectively and precisely. However, it isn't as effective at locating the activity in the brain. In contrast to the EEG is another method which is called neuroimaging. Scientists use neuroimaging to detect blood flow to areas of the brain, as blood flow indicates those areas are being used. Knowing this helps scientists understand which brain functions are affected during meditation. Thus, unlike EEG, neuroimaging is better at identifying location. So, let's look specifically into some recent findings. There have been studies of those practicing Vipassana, an ancient form of meditation from India. They indicated a lot of activity in areas of the cortex related to the ability to focus on an activity, and showed that meditators have improved control over their attention levels. They were less prone to being affected by noises or other distractions. Later, studies conducted on practitioners of ancient Japanese Zen meditation resulted in similar findings. It's also been discovered that meditators experience emotional states more powerfully than most people. In 2008, Antoine Lutz, a neuroscientist at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, did a study of emotional response during meditation. He tested subjects' responses to emotionally charged sounds during meditation. By using neuroimaging, he was able to see increased activity in areas of the brain related to emotional reaction. Now that I've discussed findings related to state changes, what about the longer-term trait changes? Well, there is evidence that meditation protects against the natural reduction in grey matter. That is, the volume of the brain doesn't shrink as much with age. So, though meditation does not actually increase brain size, long-term meditators have better attention in their later years. So there are definitely benefits for aging. But there are also clinical applications of meditation that offer promising long-term results. An example of this is the effectiveness of regular meditation in treating depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Meditation also has some physiological applications in terms of dieting, where it is part of the mindfulness diet, and exercise, especially when combined with yoga. In conclusion, there is evidence to show that there are both state and long-term benefits for those who practice meditation on a regular basis. And I believe this will help continue the trend of more people becoming regular practitioners.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers. Hackers test.
Section 1. You will hear a telephone conversation between a customer and a camping site representative about reserving a campsite. First, you have some time to read through questions 1 to 2. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 2.
New Forest Campgrounds, this is Shelley speaking.
Hello, I am planning a trip with some friends for this weekend. Do you have space for a medium-sized recreational vehicle to park on your grounds?
Let me check our schedule. Yes, we do have a space vacant.
Okay, that's good. And we will have some additional cars too. Do you have extra parking spaces?
We have a few, but they are often filled up. However, there is parking available nearby at Exbury Gardens. You'll see it right next to the bus stop for the gardens.
What was the name of that again?
Exbury Gardens. It is a 10-minute stroll from the camping site. Or if you're driving, it's under 5 minutes from our grounds to the garden's main gate.
Oh, yes. I've heard of those gardens.
They are quite popular. I'd highly recommend a visit there to see the floral displays. And you can also go boating on a lake there. You and your group may enjoy it.
Thanks for the tip. I'm here with friends and we have already made plans to do some hiking. Anyway, could I go ahead and make the reservation?
Certainly. Let me get a reservation form. I'm going to need to take down some information from you.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you can read through questions 3 to 10. Now, listen and answer questions 3 to 10.
Not a problem at all.
First, could I please get your full name?
Sure. My name's Ken White.
Good. Oh, and could I get your street address for our records?
Yep, it is 43 Hughes Street. That's Hughes, and it is in Bracknell.
And could I get a number to contact you at?
My mobile number is 07700 940 281.
07700 940 381?
940 281.
Got it. Okay, and what date do you plan to arrive?
I'll be there on Saturday, October 4th.
And how many nights do you plan to stay?
Just the one night. We're driving to the coast to spend 2 nights there after that.
Okay, that's fine. So, what time do you think you'll arrive?
I'll be arriving there at about 12 p.m.
Okay. I am going to reserve space 27 for you, located in Lot D. That's in the northwest corner of the grounds. So when you come in the gate, go straight ahead for about 5 minutes, and then turn left before you come to the main building. How many guests will there be in total?
It'll just be me and 3 friends, so 4 altogether. Oh, could you tell me the cost? Do you charge per person or per space?
We charge just for the space, and it would be £30 for the night. You can pay when you arrive, but I'll need your number now if you plan to pay by credit card.
Oh, I'll be paying in cash. And we were hoping to do some grilling too. Are we allowed to do that?
Yes, but if you cook food at your campsite, there are a few things you should be aware of. We don't recommend cooking any food after it gets dark. That's usually around 8 p.m. If you do that, then wild animals might be attracted to the smell. Also, we do have a small supply of grills available, but there is a £5 charge for use. And we also rent out tents. But in both cases, you need to let me know in advance.
My friends and I have been on camping trips like this before, and we're always cautious. But thanks for the warning. Yes, we will want to use one of your grills for sure, but we won't be needing tents.
Perfect. Okay, the spot is now booked. Just check in at the campground's administration office and make your payment of £35 when you arrive.
Oh, could you give me...
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Section 4. You will hear a student presentation about chemicals called dioxins. First, you have some time to read through questions 11 to 20. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 20.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to present my research project about dioxins today. First, I'd like to offer a short explanation as to why I chose dioxins as my presentation topic. In the United States, we hear a lot about dioxins, but not everybody understands where they come from or why they are harmful. I'd like to explain those two topics first, and then talk a little bit about how to avoid exposure to these harmful chemicals and what we can do to decrease the presence of dioxins in our land, air, and even food. First of all, what are dioxins? Well, they are considered one of the dirty dozen, which is a group of organic pollutants that are extremely dangerous to nature and habitats. Researchers have identified about 419 different types of dioxin compounds in existence, but only about 30 of those are thought to contain a significant amount of toxicity. Let's now discuss where they come from. Dioxins are produced from either industrial processes or natural processes. For instance, they form during the production of herbicides and pesticides sprayed on the ground. They are also formed during combustion activities such as trash burning. Garbage plays a large part in the creation of dioxins. The natural processes that would create dioxins include volcanic explosions and large forest fires. Now, how are we exposed to dioxins? What most people don't know is that dioxins are found worldwide, and we've all been exposed to them. The highest levels of dioxins are found in soil, sediments, dairy products, meat, and fish. In fact, over 90% of human exposure to dioxin is through food or the ingredients in our food, the vast majority. This is because dioxins accumulate in the fatty tissue of animals that are later sold as food to humans. For example, a study in Belgium from 1999 found high levels of dioxins in poultry and eggs, which was traced back to animal feed in particular locations. Furthermore, there are also subgroups of people that are particularly susceptible to dioxin exposure from other sources besides food. In particular, people who work at incineration plants or hazardous waste sites are definitely exposed to an abnormally high amount of dioxins. Next, let's look at some of the negative health effects of dioxins. As I already said, dioxins are extremely toxic. However, the severity of health damage depends on the length of exposure to them. Short-term exposure to extremely high levels of dioxins can affect liver functions, and this can result in lots of medical issues later in life. Long-term exposure can result in an impaired nervous system and impaired reproductive functions. Dioxins may also cause cancer in humans as well as animals. Studies have also shown that people exposed to high amounts of dioxins have an increased risk of diabetes and heart disease. For example, a recent study was conducted in Taiwan on a group of people that had been exposed to dioxins released from manufacturing processes in a nearby factory. Findings showed that the prevalence of diabetes in this group was much higher than the national average. And another group of researchers has found that exposure to dioxins can be a major cause for heart disease. Several other medical institutions have also found definitive evidence that those exposed to dioxins have a much higher risk of developing heart disease in the future. So how do we reduce our exposure to harmful amounts of dioxins? Unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do on our own. Health professionals claim that small efforts can go a long way. Removing excess fat from meat and cutting out dairy from your diet will significantly decrease the amount of dioxins you consume through food. In addition, it is good to limit the consumption of fish from certain areas of the world. Obviously, avoiding exposure to toxic chemicals from factories and other sources is helpful as well. Finally, how do we prevent the production of more dioxins? Basically, the public can only influence this moderately. So it's really up to governments to change regulations for the production of food. Today, there are regulations for toxic waste disposal, but there is still a lot of work to do. Hopefully, in the future, dioxins will be a thing of the past. So, if any of you have questions regarding the presentation, I would be glad to.
That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers.